Unconventional Life. Welcome. This is your host, Jules Schroeder, tuning in with David Block. We are at his house in Boulder, Colorado.
Yay.
It's such a unique experience to be able to do these interviews in person. I like having that human-to-human connection time
Are
as
these
much as
not,
we can.
so a lot of times you don't get to be in person?
Well, it really depends. It depends
Yeah.
on who's local, who's passing through, but we reach people in over 75 different countries, so it's like a whole thing.
Totally.
So for those of you
teleporting,
yeah.
Yeah.
And David actually recently moved here from New York City. And for those of you that don't know David, he is the creator of The Human Experience. You are a producer, mixed media artist. We can see some of your art in the background. For those that are listening in on audio, you'll have to see the video because his art is amazing. You're also a multi-instrumentalist. You've worked with so many different musicians. You've worked with collaborators like Android Jones, Elephant Revival, and so many others. And you've had over 35 million streams through your music, released 100 different songs, or tracks, which is quite a feat. And your latest album, Gone Gone Beyond, you're working one of the singles with the UN in regards to their assembly stuff this March, which is amazing. So things are changing.
Yeah, for the better this time.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, give us a glimpse into your personal life and fill in any gaps that I might have left out, and welcome to the show.
Well, you are sitting in front of the piano in our living room right now. So behind you right now is a big, open, spacious living room. It's just, it's so amazing to be here in Boulder. This has been a pretty huge transition in our life.
Yeah.
We are still based between New York City and here, but spending a lot of time really grounding and being in the mountains where the national park is in our backyard, and there's wild foxes and deer, and it's pretty different than the J train in Brooklyn.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a totally different beast. And so we've just been being here, and we just actually last week finished a 5-day silent meditation retreat that we did in the house here.
Wow.
That we made up called Artasana, which was making art mixed with traditional Buddhist Vipassana, which my wife and I are practitioners of. So it's just been all sorts of crazy adventures in the Peak View. We call the house Exile on Peak View.
Which, is the street locally near here, which is great. And I know it's been such a big year as well. You got married at Burning Man, which was, wild. And I think, too, even making the transition from, say the J train in Brooklyn to the mountains, the PQV in Colorado, it's also like this embodiment of the unconventional life. And curious what led to that shift in you, because I think it's so easy we grow in this world where it's just like moving at 1,000,000 miles per hour, this meeting, this collab, this et cetera, but then to actually slow down and tune in, I at least know in my own life, get more in touch with what are my needs, and then how do I create my environment around that. And so
totally, it kind of goes hand in hand. It's like you are often, your income is often the mean of the 5 people closest to you, and then you are often a reflection of the 5 people closest to you. And I find the environment is similar. New York is amazing for when I want to hustle. So when I'm like, I'm gonna change the world, and I have to be in the capital of America in New York or LA. I'm from LA, but New York just has this really intense hustle grind about it, for better and worse. It pushed me forward in so many different ways, having breakthroughs. It birthed my entire visual art exploration, which if you asked me in an interview 2 years ago if I would do anything visual art really besides photography, it would never be a thing. And New York pushed me in a way that I've never been pushed before, to explore new ways of my creative process. And it also literally crippled my body from overworking. And that's how I ended up here. It's actually the day before our gig at the UN. We were invited as part of this, as part of the General Assembly, to do this song "Things Are Changing," which is the single from our new album, which I think you'll enjoy. yeah, it was the day before, and I was working all night till like 5 in the morning on art, on visual art, mixed media stuff, and I was just on my hands and knees, just overworking because I had my first exhibition in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I woke up the next day and I couldn't move. Like I was literally crippled. Like my back, something was pinched in my back. And this was the day before the UN gig and all these like things coming.
About the timing.
And I was like, why? God!
It's like the exhibition, the UN.
How is this? What are you telling me? You know? I had like my Truman Show moment. I was like, what the, why? And yeah, and it's funny because as someone who has such a deep connection between my spirituality and my creative expression, they're linked together. Making art has been paralleled with my meditation practice for over a decade. And yeah, New York hustled too hard. And then I crippled myself, and then I got this WhatsApp message from a friend that said, hey, my dad, who I know, Papa Tom, we're in Papa Tom's house, and Papa Tom is moving to California. He's lived here for 40 years. He's been meditating in this house for 40 years. Wow. He's an amazing man. And we came here. Christina's like, I really like it here, my wife. I said, cool, you want to take the house? She said, yeah. I said, cool, we'll take it. That was it. Like, it went like 24 hours, crippled, UN, concert in Colorado, new house.
Wow. Talk about like, though, when synchronicity and alignment happens, it's like, and for those that don't know the Boulder housing market, I've been here for like 12 years. It's insane to find like, but then just to have this place open up in that fashion. And here you are.
If you're open to it, the universe is doing all sorts of incredible things in your favor all the time.
Yeah.
If you are willing to listen.
Yeah, which I think is, when I think about, I'd be curious to hear a little bit about your backstory. If we were a fly on the wall, if you would say, like, what snapshots we might have seen along the way, and tying in with some of those synchronicities. Like, on one end, you hear this, like, being an artist, especially with so many different mediums, it's so hard to make money doing it. It's just, like, this scarcity of resources, hours spent on acknowledgement, on appreciation. And then there's, like, the business side, which is, can kill the creative craft of the art. Yet, I do believe that when alignment and things are present, like, you've had so much success in your career so far. So, yeah, what would we have seen? Like, snapshots along the way. I imagine it wouldn't have been like what we're doing.
Super weird shit.
Like, what would we have seen, like, who, like, give us the world. If we were to create, like, a context of who you were. Even in, like, high school, was, like, art always in your, like, being an artist always something a part of you? Was it, Yeah.
It's, God, it's been quite a journey. It's funny. I went back and forth in my head. It was like, is that a good idea? Should we do that? Is that okay? Don't do that. Bad idea. And then I was like, oh, snapshots along the way. I was like, well, I have like 140 hours of tattoo work.
Wow.
And I feel like those have like, so I was like, you should just look at my back.
Yeah.
You should look at my back.
Yeah.
I'll give you like, this was 2 minutes. 2 minutes snapshot. Ready?
Wow.
Okay. So my life, my new life started here. And that was in Costa Rica, Nicaragua, when I was 21 years old. That was my first tattoo.
Wow.
And I left America. I quit my job. My best friend had died, and I had an existential crisis. And I decided to move to Central America and leave everything that I had to claim my own life. So I played street music and busked on the street. And then I ended up in Nicaragua and Central America, and that happened.
Yeah.
Shortly after that, I moved to India. And India has happened around here.
It's on the low back for those of you that are on audio. You'll have to catch us on the video.
Man. So you've got to get the video.
You have to catch the video.
Maybe this is a fail.
It's an approved. Keep going.
So this happened in India, and this was this lotus ended up being my first discovery in meditation, where. It was something I would never see. Their eyes I would never see with my own eyes, and that the lotus, the path of the lotus, is to grow through the mud and die and redeposit its seeds back in the mud so it could grow more lotuses. So that's how that happened. And then, anyway, I don't know. This is enough tattoo stuff, but this I thought would be an interesting thing. So that's where, yeah.
Yeah. So 22, you end up in Nicaragua. From Nicaragua, you go to India.
I go to India.
So you're busking. Like, did you go to college? Have an interest in college? And also, like, what was it like? Like, did you have like parental pressure, societal pressure, like all of the things? Like, even what was that dynamic like?
Yeah, I mean, I have very supportive parents in a way, and they're like, you can be anything as long as it's a doctor or a lawyer. Traditional Jewish parents. That's just, that was my upbringing. I dropped out of college. I started my first business when I was 12 years old, and I started a clothing company, and I was selling magic cards and playing cards to my friends, and I was just always an entrepreneur, and but always really. I was heavily medicated. I was medicated for 13 years of my childhood for ADHD and ODD and CD and all sorts of Ds. And so, I had a pretty different, I have a very alternative brain. Yeah. Which now I've fallen in love with, but, for a long time had a really hard time with. But I had a lot of pressure. I went to business school. I had really high aptitude tests and like IQ and things like that. So it was always just like, why is he underperforming? His IQ's very high, and it was always stuff shit like that.
Fit into this box.
Fit in this box. Take this pill. It'll make you more in a box.
So many of our listeners can relate to as well, like that constant, duality of it.
I mean, I was really fortunate. I have deeply loving parents at the same time who are doing the absolute best they can and have like imparted me with like invaluable wisdom that has shaped my process. It just happened at that time that was like being a professional artist was not really an option. Yeah. It was like, it wasn't until I had my first song on television that it was really like a real profession. Yeah. It was like, even after like touring like 20 countries around the world, it was still kind of like, there was the last glimmer of hope, like, he'll complete college. One day, he'll complete college. Make his grandparents proud. That didn't happen. No.
And how did the television piece happen? Was that on NBC? Was that show, or is that?
Yeah, I've had a few shows that have used our music. It's, I'm really fortunate that people have I've gone a really different route. Mm-hmm. My friend calls me the wild, wild west of the music industry. Mm-hmm. Just because I wing everything. Yeah. I was a gypsy. I was traveling around the world. When I started playing music, I was busking on the street, which is where I met Rising Appalachia in India, and going from that to where people pay me money to show up places that that piece changed, but I was still kind of like, I'm a gypsy on the street playing music, Uh-huh. So it's, but I would say fortunately, as I've grown, I've never had a manager, never had a booking agent. I've done everything myself. For better or for worse, I'm finally building a team now, which is I feel really deeply honored to be finally building a team. Yeah. But, I don't know. I think people have fortunately found my music because my music has been paralleled with my spiritual journey. Mm-hmm. And therefore people connect with it in a really deep way. Yeah. Apparently. So like
35 million streams later, there's some resonance.
Yeah. No, and people write me in messages and they're like, I birthed my child listening to your music. Wow. It's like, I transitioned. There was a point in time where I was like, I was tripping balls and I was listening to your music. And I was like, cool. That's great. I love tripping balls and listening to music. I thank you. But when it evolved to like, I got a message earlier this year from a woman who I've known over the course of years. She's an amazing performer, and she wrote me she had a panic attack, and she was considering like taking her own life. And she was like crawling on the ground, and she's just like she had lost control. And she's like, I went and I knew exactly what I needed to do. I went and put on your music, and your music saved my life. Wow. I was like, cool, I'll keep making music.
Yeah. And I think that's such the impact that you can never really predict that happens. And for me too, like when we have people come in from the show or different things that write in, it's like, it's the fuel to keep going. And how was it, for a long time? Because I think a lot of people that listen to our show, whether they're entrepreneurs or they're artists or, athletes, it's like this period of like the not knowing of, is this like, am I valuable? Am I making a difference? Is this worthwhile? Does anyone even care? Am I just releasing this into a black hole? And how do you navigate that in yourself? And how have you? Maybe it gets easier. Does it get easier as you go on to some degree? Or what could you say for those that might be in a similar position of like, is this even like,
which I do.
Yeah. Because I know
I have a couple thoughts here. One, this is a new thing for me. I would recommend if you are an artist and a creative and you want to be a professional, you think you have one of two options, really. One of them is don't do it. Don't do it. It's a terrible, long, arduous, unbelievable path. It's the most challenging job you can do, especially if you want to stay authentic, which happens to be the key to your success. So if you want to stay authentic and be an artist and be creative, I either say don't do it, or you have to want it so much. And there are ways to cultivate that inspiration, but you have to want it so much that you can't do anything else, and that it doesn't really matter, and you will suffer. You will eat fucking bread and soup and do that until you make it, until you define what it is your unique offering is. Yeah. That is the only time I would recommend doing something as creative. Because I lived in a fucking closet in East Oakland in the hood, with nothing, making music for years. It was hard. It is hard. I travel 300 days a year. My body broke down, after being a successful artist. So it's challenging. But if you want it, it's the most rewarding, beautiful thing that you can ever do. Yeah. I think this is one other thing, just because I keep looking at it. I was going to say, if you are watching this video, I'll show you. This is on the lines of, does anyone give a shit? Yeah,
which is such a theme. Yeah.
Nothing you can do. Be as vulnerable and authentic and dive deep to excavate the emotions that are in your body, to alchemize them into real art. But anyway, I'm not going to grab it, but over there in the corner there is a piece of wood covered with paper.
Should grab it.
Should grab it?
Yeah, let's grab it.
Grab it.
Yeah, let's totally grab it. And he was just showing before we started the interview, he's been transferring photography.
Yeah, transferring the photography on wood. This is a giant dragonfly. It's not done yet. It will look cooler than that. Yeah. But the process of getting it to here involves my rubbing paper off of this thing. My hands are swollen right now because I spent the last 3 hours before you got here doing this because I'm obsessed with it right now. And I know it will look cool at the end. Will anyone ever see it or buy it or anything else? I have no idea. Literally, my hands hurt right now. I'm really covered in
He had to actually change his shirt.
I had to change my shirt.
It's resin.
Because I'm covered in medium. And
yeah.
Will anyone ever see that? I have no idea.
Yeah. And I imagine, though, you've learned to, work with your mental game throughout the years, maybe to some degree, to kind of navigate the does anyone does anyone give a shit? Yeah. To keep going, to have that internal flame and any tips that you've learned along the way, or little pieces you could share with some of our listeners?
I have an every month or 6 weeks existential crisis, so this does not end ever, by the way. So enjoy. Yeah, I mean, I'm a meditator. I meditate every day that I end up making the time, which is in increasing amounts, thankfully. That helps. I find that humans are meaning-making machines, right? That's what humans are trying to do. They're trying to make sense out of something that doesn't make sense. They're using their rational, reasoning mind to try to put inside a box something infinite and indescribable. Yeah. So it's a tough thing, that we're doing here in the human experience. This is like a whole it's pretty crazy, right? Where you realize we're using tools, reason and logic, brain, to try to understand. This is most of the species, almost all of them, to understand something that you can't use those tools for. So my peace and stillness has come through Vipassana, which means to see things as they truly are. You can do it no matter what religion you are. It's not a dogmatic practice. It is simply the practice of insight and observing the fundamental truth of all things in nature, which is that things are changing. Yeah. That things are always changing, and that is the only thing that is true. We might live in a multiverse. There might be a flying spaghetti monster. It might be Jesus. It could be the Quran. I don't know, but they're always changing. I do know that. Yeah. And so my tips and tools involve exploring. Instead of trying to figure out what I perceive truths or feelings or thoughts on things, I stay open-minded to everything. Flying spaghetti monster, totally possible. Mormons, totally possible. Hollow Earth, totally possible. Flat Earth, unlikely, possible. Hollow Earth, much more likely. Google it. Seriously, Google that. Really though, seriously, Google it. It's fucking crazy. Everything is possible, and I'm open-minded to all of those things, and I use that approach in my life. Yeah. And I let one of the principal aspects of the universe are the laws of nature, in a practice called Dhamma. So just observing the laws of nature, the gift of observing the laws of nature. And what happens when you do that is all the bullshittery that you were worrying about.
It's a great word. Bullshittery.
All the medicine ceremonies and all the bills you had to pay and all the personal growth programs that I've done and the teachers and the music and it's all really meaningless in a beautiful way. Yeah. I know it sounds like kind of harsh, right? Because it sounds a bit like nihilistic. You're like, oh, it's just fucking meaningless. All of your work will be meaningless and you will die. Which is true. It's kind of exciting. It's like, so I live my life that way. And I live moment to moment. Yeah.
And it seems like, too, like practicing the non-attachment to what is flowing in and out. Yet, as human beings, we have this desire to make meaning, and to attach and to cling and to want to have our own agendas and our own, initiatives. But the balance of that non-attachment, and how do you think that is with like conventional wisdom, right? Like I think especially some of our listeners, whether they're even in like a 9-to-5 job, or they're like, all right, David, that's great that you get to meditate.
Yeah, that's fucking cute. Good job, white male American. Yeah, asshole.
You get to practice that, right? But I also know there's roots in that too, and so like for those that feel like so sometimes it's like my circumstances don't allow it is a story or a reality actually.
My circumstances didn't allow it.
Yeah.
I mean that it's a very challenging because I will absolutely presence. That is the perspective of some. I couldn't always do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. I could always do that, and I've done it for a decade. It's just looked a little bit different. I mean, I had to hustle as hard as anyone. I hustle currently as hard as anyone I know. That is, whether they're stuck in a 9 to 5, whatever excuses. Excuses are like assholes. Everyone's got one. That's my go-to. Because I get it. And if you are a Syrian refugee, then we're not living. It's a different experience of being a human on Earth right now. I can't possibly imagine that currently.
Yeah.
Right now, I can't. So yes, but I would say the same thing. I mean, it's like when I lived in India, and then when I go back to India, still, I mean, I see some of the most joyful people. I had this experience. I love street photography. I was on the streets of Mumbai. It was like 11:30 at night, and there were these 2 little girls selling flowers on the street. It was fucking dirty and cars everywhere. It was crazy. It's like Mumbai. And they were just playing, putting flowers in each other's ears. And some people I was with were like, poor girls. And I'm like, do you see how much fun they're having? I'm not saying that their circumstances don't suck and that they're not in a whole... I would love to be some more resource equality. I mean, it's totally reasonable, But in terms of quality of life and joie de vivre and actual, let's just go quality of life based on how much joy you're having. I've seen people with lots of nice stuff, including some of the people I was with, who are fucking miserable.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard when you say oh yeah, I have a 9 to 5 job. Well, take 10 minutes and meditate in the morning. Wake up 10 minutes earlier and increase. Find those things that take over your life. The natural principles of nature start guiding your life. By the way, I said simple, not easy.
Yeah.
Really simple, really not easy. When I was wearing, I had to wear a little waistcoat, man vest, massaging people during dinner at Supper Club in San Francisco for 2 years.
While you were working on your music.
Yeah, while I was making music in the hood in a closet.
Yeah.
How bad do you want it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I really like that as quality of life measured by the amount of joy that you're having. And even on this thread too, and it has me curious, back to Rising Appalachia, because you're talking about India again. It seems like in your career, that collaboration was a big launch point.
Totally.
And what changed after that? And I think that's how I actually came upon your music. Was I followed my sister, Circus Before My Sister, huge Rising Appalachia fan, and then she was like, "Have you heard this remix?" And I was like, "Whoa, this shit's really good." And but even the process of before and then after, and you're such a collaborator. Was that a big turning point in a big way? And
yeah, I'd say it's probably one of the 2 major turning points for my teeth.
Oh, behind you.
Yeah, probably one of 2 major turning points.
Yeah.
Being one, that was the first album that I had done that was a blending folk music and electronic music. That was the beginning of that.
Yeah.
Effectively. I think I'd made some attempts at it before, maybe not so effectively.
Mm-hmm.
It was leading up to that, but that was the first time where I took my roots as a singer-songwriter and applied them to everything I'd learned with electronic. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, it was I can almost read people's minds when they're like, you know what album I listen to all the time? It's old, but I still love it. And I'm just like, let me guess. So it's beautiful. It's led me to everything that I'm doing now.
Yeah. Well, and I think in so many ways, you being so versatile in the different mediums that you create with, and the blending, it seems to be your, I don't know if you want to call it ninja skill, but your superpower. And I think in our world today, it's the cross-pollinating of ideas and what's, the predictable path, and then how do you put your own spin on it that create new things. And so anything you can say to that about just taking risks with ideas and creativity and blending the fusions? And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so my approach, and I'm going to steal this from Tom Waits.
Mm-hmm.
He said, the thing that keeps me making music is I have no idea what I'm doing. And it's all play and exploration. And the more there's two qualities of the creative process for me. There's the mind and the no mind. And they're both necessary. If you have too much no mind, you just have these really super weird nebulous ideas. They're not really grounded in anything that is functional or enjoyable by anybody. It's like, I want to do this like thing. It's oh my god, too many moonshots, not grounded.
Yeah.
And then there's the mind, which is your sharp tools. When I go to cut something, it actually cuts it. You know, so like if I think of my mind as my like the saw or the pencil, I have to have it sharp in order to do what I want it to do. That's practice,
yeah.
and I do that through exercise. I do that through my nutrition. I do that through practicing my instruments, which I'm finally doing more of. That was a big block for me. I do that through just exploring. And so now when I explore, I can trust my intuition and my instincts, which is where I think all great art really comes from. Yeah. Because I mean, what is art? It's this huge, it's so. You have 20 podcasts. You have your own podcast just for that conversation. What is that? Maybe I'll be my podcast.
Totally.
And but I find that like most of the mechanical art that I see that's like overly thought of, unless you're like MC Escher, a lot of it's kind of like it doesn't necessarily move you emotionally. Whereas you see things that you can see just a black canvas, and if you're willing to go there emotionally with what that artist was expressing, it can be profound. Mm-hmm. So yeah, now I just trust my faculties. I train them. So I say, okay, hands, you can play piano. But if I think about what I'm doing too much, I'm going to make shitty music, It's going to be really, I don't like it.
Yeah.
And
I think I relate to it as like, I call it being, the median or the channel, like allowing it to just flow through.
Creativity comes through you, not from you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you train your faculty.
I train things so they can do the things that I want them to do. Mm-hmm. And then I just get out of my head. Yeah. And I do that through meditation, through my practice. I do that through exercise. I do it through making love. I do it through dancing. I do it. There are a lot of different tools that you can do to get out of the head, because this is where all the shit. This is like, that doesn't look so good. Don't play that, or like that sounds shitty. You're. I told you, every 6 weeks I make a song. I make a lot of music, Yeah. But I always make a song that halfway through it, I'm like, you suck. You're a terrible music producer. You have lost. You made all the songs that are ever going to be good. All your good songs, you made a couple good ones. All at once from now on, bad songs. No, every 6 weeks, I shit you not. I'm just like, why does this happen? I don't, Yeah. Andrew told me something that really helps me with what you said with trying new things. He said, never be satisfied. Which I thought was just terribly depressing for a while. I was like, well, I'm pretty happy. I think that's a really cool piece. I really like that piece. But I think it's like, never be satisfied with what you're doing. I like to think of every piece that I create as a problem in a way. If I've solved that problem a few times, move on to a new problem. Yeah. And then I try something else. And if it's that's just what keeps me exploring with, I was like, I'm going to take books and cut them up and to make totem poles out of books. It's like, why? I don't know. I have a weird voice in my head, that burning desire in me, like the child on a playground, Mm-hmm. You don't ask them like why they're doing that. Like, why are you playing on the playground? Like, because all I want to do is play on the playground. This is what I want to do.
It's so good. Yeah. And in just a moment here, we're going to transition to actually hearing some of the mediums in action.
Oh, yeah.
With that piano that's back behind us. But before we go there, I want to switch to the business side of it, because I think there's the duality of it. And I think the business side of it, too, it's like taking creativity, and then how do you take this creative vessel inside of you, and then how do you transfer it outside? And then how do you create a viable, even now you're like,
No, it's, I have a very strong, weird, it's just, I think it's one of the most challenging thing that you'll ever do, you know, and it's resulted in the prostitution of what is the most sacred thing that I've ever had in my life, which is my creative process.
Yeah.
And I call it, like, I use strong words because I'm like, when I listen to music that's like raping the minds of people in the world and polluting our planet, it's destroying our planet. You know, it's, if you listen to the art and the music of a culture is generally pretty reflective of what are the value systems of those cultures. And I listened to this talk the other day with Sun Ra from Sun Ra Orchestra, super trippy jazz dude. Yeah. And he's like, I truly believe that one of the problems with our planet is the music we're listening to. Which is ironic because his music is super fucking weird, but it's you know, it's at least jazz, and it's not like misogynist, self-deprecating, capitalist, consumer, disgusting art and music. And it's hard because, you know, it's like I was at Capitol Records the other day, and I met this super sweet girl. She's like, "You look like an artist." Like, good call. I was wearing like some super weird shit, and she's like, "You look like an artist, you know?" Okay. You look like an artist. She was wearing like all yellow and looking super fabulous and amazing, and I was like, "Wow, you're probably an artist too." Everyone's an artist, by the way, but it's just how expressed you are. She's, you know, we're more expressed. Yeah. Anyway, I was like, "I'd love to hear your music." And she plays music. Listen to it. I was like, this sounds really commercial. I was like, that was what came out. I was like, oh, shit. That was all that came out. I was like, it's good. It's super commercial. And she's like, yeah, I've been having a really hard time trying to figure out what music is going to sell. And I was like, oh, shit. It's a paradox. It's a trap. Don't go there. It will, even if it sells, it will only sell for a short period of time, and then you'll be fucking Lil Yachty or someone, whoever the next mumble rapper is, and like mumble rapper, you know, and like so the business is challenging. Yeah. When you make your passion your profession, the whole game changes. There's no easy answer for that if you want to live on Earth in 2019. Unfortunately, it's just like the magic thing that's going to make your thing go viral. Or, I mean, even with that many streams, that's spread across a lot of platforms. Yeah. It's nothing compared to some of the people in the music and entertainment industry. Not like nothing. It's a fraction, small fraction. It's challenging, you know. It's to look out there and to say, like, I'm doing something that, if you've taken the time to cultivate something that feels authentic, by the way, if you've ever even gone there. Prereq to the conversation. Do that first, yeah. But please do that first, you know, like that's my number one recommendation. Find what is authentic to you. Go to a deep, vulnerable place inside yourself, which usually involves spending time in nature, stop eating crappy foods, meditate, still your mind, quiet your mind so you could listen to the symphony that's all around you, and then figure out what you have to sell. Yeah. This is the opposite advice that one of my mentors gave me, by the way, just saying. It's like, do you have something to say or something to sell? You figure it out. You have something to sell? higher likelihood of success. You have something to say? Maybe.
Yeah.
Hard.
Mm-hmm.
Hard.
Yeah. And, I think it also comes down to, like, value as well and what perceived value is. And as an artist, I know now you get, obviously paid to show up, like we were talking about earlier, for these different, whether it's performances or appearances. And even, and I imagine that dollar amount has increased as, the time has increased. Increasing.
Yeah.
But then even, like, I talk to a lot of artists and, all the time, and it's just, like, even the struggle of, like, can I even charge that, or is it even worth that, and how to even, and this is also for our entrepreneurs as well, like,
totally,
does it even warrant that? And if you charge more, are you selling out? Are you betraying the craft? Like, that can kind of kick in. But then at the same time, you also,
are you worth it? Is your art really worth it? You worthless piece of nothing.
Totally.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, how do you create an abundant life that actually really serves you and takes care of you and fuels you and resources you to keep pursuing the path? So, like, the dynamic of that. But any last few words you can say on that before we jump onto the piano and hear a little bit of some of the new stuff on the album?
Yeah. Gosh, who's calling me? See, this never turns out to turn off my phone. Business. Business. You want to talk about business? This, glued to my hand. You need to have an enormous amount of courage to be a human alive today, because the education system we're using, the values that we're cultivating, and I'm going to say, when I say we, I'm going to say, like, I'm referring to the Western world in general, and how that trickles over to Asia and has the world. I'm talking about the world. In my opinion, I can only speak from my opinion. Okay, what I see are people cultivating values that are not sustainable, they're not regenerative, and they're not full of loving kindness towards each other. And so you get art that's, it's like rape. You can't turn it off. You try to turn off what's happening in the world, and you have to become a monk. So let's say you don't want to be a monk. You want to live on Earth and be a human, have a talk and use Instagram and shit like that. You try to turn off the world. You need a lot of courage to go at it today. Things are becoming automated. Your skills are becoming less valued. Robots are going to take your jobs in 5 years. The creative jobs are going to be the last ones to go. So start cultivating now. It takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
I think one of the most important pieces that I would add is I cannot express the amount of value I believe it has to cultivate one's creative process, whether you are using that as your profession or not. That would be my recommendation. I was reading some personal letters written to Albert Einstein. I love it. I read a lot. I'm reading lots of weird books all the time, and I love it. And I'm reading personal letters to Albert Einstein, and someone said, I love math. I'm a mathematician. I'm good. I'm not great. What do you suggest I do? He said, don't be a mathematician. You'll ruin your love for it. It's like, you have to figure out, how do you define success? How does one define success in their life? If you define success by how much joy you have, you might not be the next Alicia Keys. That's okay. Making music is full of joy. If you let it be full of joy, you might have to work and do something in this life that you don't want to do. That's life.
Yeah.
It's just how it goes. And if you want to tell me to fuck off and say, I don't want to do shit that I want to do, then prove me wrong, and have enough patience, passion, and persistence to get it done. Because you can do it. If you're a refugee, you can do it. We have success from everyone. I'm doing this Lifebook program right now.
I'm doing it as well.
We're doing Lifebook right now together. Yay! I'm behind.
Yeah, me too. I think I've only watched one. I'm really far behind.
Oh, I'm more ahead than you.
Winning.
And anyway, there's this part of, this book of Viktor Frankl, who's in a fucking Nazi concentration camp. You don't get harder than that.
Yeah.
To find resilience and find that courage and strength to be a writer and find hope in those moments. That you can, the human spirit is immensely resilient. And if you have those courage and those qualities, then I would say you can do it. I believe in you. I just think it's fucking hard.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Such well said. Yeah, such well said. And on that note, tell us, about the upcoming album that's coming out. And, and also for those that are tuning in, how they can stay in touch, follow along.
Should we get Danny?
Songs. Yeah, let's get him. So we'll pause audio here, and then we'll do this, and then this will come back in. So we'll record this last part of the segment.
Okay, cool.
And then we'll get on the piano.
Yeah, and then we'll do some stuff.
We'll jam there. Yeah.
Cool.
So, so tell us about the upcoming album that's coming out.
So, you asked about the Rising Appalachia stuff, and which I am working on new Rising Appalachia music, which is exciting.
They will actually be guests on the show. We're interviewing them tomorrow, actually. No, on Thursday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so...
You can say, tell them I said hi.
I will.
Yeah. And so after that, started blending more traditional songwriting with the music that I've been creating over the years. And so which birthed this project called Gone Gone Beyond, which is kind of a super group. It's the three of the most incredible artists I've ever worked with, all in one band. Yeah. So it's Danny Musengo, songwriting and lead vocals, and Mel Seme, every instrument that's ever made, and lead vocals, and Cat Factor, a whole bunch of other instruments, lead vocals, and myself. And they call me the fearless cult leader. I'm their cult leader.
And some vocals on there.
And vocals, and singing.
Vocals,
and singing, correct. Yeah, which is exciting for me.
Yeah.
I love singing. It's the most incredible thing I've ever worked on.
Yeah.
This project in general. The depth of the lyrics and the message and the musicianship and the family that's been created and what's coming through. It's just, it's so inspiring.
Yeah.
And it was on I try to make a few times a year, like on the new moon, like a new moon manifestation, like what are you bringing into your life? And one thing that's been on there for over a decade is I collaborate with artists and creators who push my boundaries. That never changes. I can have that on I'll have that on my last moon manifestation chart when I die. I hope it's still on there. And these artists will really push me.
Yeah.
And they're incredible.
Yeah.
And so the album is super eclectic. It's unique. It's its own thing. It tells stories. It's called Things Are Changing. And some of the song titles are like, It All Comes Down to Us. You Can't Go Wrong. Things Are Changing. Young Forever. What the Lovers Do. It's so In Too Deep. I mean, it's so dynamic and
all the things.
It's all the things.
Yeah,
it's all the things.
And when is it debuting? Because I know you've got, we talked about earlier the collaboration with UN on the album or on one of the songs, and then there's another one too.
There are three.
Several collaborations.
Yeah, there's 3 that are out right now.
Yeah.
So you can go listen to this, what we're doing, and then you can go listen to it right now. You Can't Go Wrong, By the Sea, and Things Are Changing are out.
Awesome. And best ways for people to find your stuff, to search it on things.
Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, Apple Music, everywhere. Bandcamp. All my music is available for free. If you want it, you can donate to it too. Yeah. If you want to download it and share it with other people, you can do that. And hopefully it inspires you to wholesomely share whatever it is your offering is with the rest of the world.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
And on that last part, the last question I have for you is, what does living the unconventional life mean to you, given our whole context of conversation? If you could sum it up in just a few words.
I think it's the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell. Read Joseph Campbell. Everyone in the universe should read Joseph Campbell. When you said, well, where does it start? And I showed you some tattoos and stuff, and like that, I just thought it's different. David Block 2019 versus David Block, not every moment, but I mean, like, if you were to look back to the pivotal moment where I said, I'm going to choose to create my own life.
Yeah.
I would say the unconventional life, I hope it becomes the conventional life in this podcast. I hope your podcast fails.
Me too. I hope I'm out of business in a few years, because there is no unconventional life.
Yeah, just start the conventional life where everyone is like radically expressed, and it's like Buckminster Fuller world, and it's collaborative and non-competitive, and I love that.
We're headed there.
We're on the
path.
Yeah,
We're on the trajectory.
yeah, something's happening.
Yeah.
But for now, on this date, whatever date it is right now, 2019, I would say that the most valuable thing that a human can do is self-inquiry and say, who am I? And am I living my own life, or am I living am I the construction of everyone else?
Yeah.
Telling me that David is this, Jules is this, so for now, that unconventional life is challenging the status quo and saying, am I thinking my own thoughts? Or is someone else controlling my thoughts? Is the food sugar controlling my thoughts? Is telenovela bullshit, horrible, disgusting music controlling my thoughts? What is influencing me to make the choices that I'm making in this world? And just to observe those.
Yeah.
Take the first step of self-inquiry.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
Self-inquiry.
Just observe.
David Block, everyone.
You would find Mama.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in with all of our listeners, Unconventional Life family. I got a lot of, and I know you've got some exciting workshops that you're leading this year, as you've all these other years, and so make sure to follow him along.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
So often I try to imagine what our life might be like if we had never let the world into our little fairy tale. Would we be standing quite as tall? Justice in my life. Give me the hardest punch you've got. If you're the last thing that I saw. But ain't we the lucky ones after all? hardest punch you've got. If you're the last thing that I saw. But ain't we the lucky ones after all? Ain't we the lucky ones after all? To have some